The war between Russia and Ukraine has now entered its third year. 3 years filled with suffering, destruction, and immense loss. When the invasion first began on February 24, 2022, Ukraine stood firm against Russia's aggression, backed by unwavering support from the West, especially the United States under President Joe Biden. Ukraine received financial aid, advanced weaponry, and continuous political backing. However, circumstances have now shifted dramatically. Under the leadership of Donald Trump, the United States, once Ukraine's primary protector, now seems to be turning against it. This shift raises a critical question. Has Ukraine truly been abandoned? The most devastating blow to Ukraine came on February 18, 2025, when Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This was no ordinary diplomatic meeting. It was a high-level discussion on US-Russia relations and Ukraine's future. Shockingly, Ukraine was not invited, and the European Union was also excluded from the talks. Despite years of fighting for its sovereignty and freedom, Ukraine was denied a seat at the negotiating table where its fate was being decided. The meeting in Saudi Arabia followed an earlier, unexpected move by the US president. Donald Trump had a direct phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which lasted over an hour and focused on the situation in Ukraine. For Russia, this was a major diplomatic victory, signaling that Trump viewed Putin as an equal negotiating partner. This call coincided with a statement by US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth informing European allies that the idea of Ukraine regaining its pre-2014 borders was no longer considered a realistic objective by the United States.
Must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective.
This declaration was a clear message to Europe about where America's priorities now lay. Beyond the issue of Ukraine, the Saudi meeting also covered potential economic cooperation between Russia and the United States. Reports suggest that discussions included possible energy projects, marking a significant shift from previous years when US oil giant ExxonMobil had withdrawn from a joint venture with Russia's Rosneft due to sanctions imposed after Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea. Now, with Trump seeking to expand US influence in the Arctic and other strategic regions, new energy partnerships with Russia were once again on the table. Kirill Dmitriev, head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, DIF, who was present at the Saudi negotiations, highlighted how strained US-Russia relations had negatively impacted American businesses. He estimated that American companies had lost around $300 billion by cutting ties with Russia in response to Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. With renewed US-Russia engagement, Russia hoped to regain economic maneuverability. But where does this leave Ukraine and the European Union? Recognizing the potential disaster of US-Russia negotiations, French President Emmanuel Macron convened an emergency meeting in Paris on February 17, 2025. European leaders gathered to discuss their continent's security and the implications of the US-Russia talks for Ukraine. In response, the EU announced its 17th round of sanctions against Russia. However, this effort seemed futile. The US had already chosen a different course, distancing itself from its traditional allies. For Russia, this was a long-awaited victory. Since the war began, Moscow's main goal has been to seize and consolidate control over territories it claims as part of a greater Russia. Now, with direct US engagement, Russia aimed to secure international recognition of the 4 Ukrainian regions it had annexed, including the contested areas of Donetsk and Luhansk. Additionally, Moscow wanted Ukraine's NATO membership aspirations permanently halted and President Volodymyr Zelensky removed from power. Zelensky's term was supposed to end in 2024, but under Ukrainian law, elections cannot be held during wartime, allowing him to remain in office. Russia saw this as an opportunity to demand his removal as part of a potential peace deal. Trump fueled the controversy by mocking Zelensky, claiming he had only 4% public support. Ukrainian media quickly refuted this, publishing approval ratings showing Zelensky still held 57% support. Outraged, Zelensky accused Trump of being surrounded by Russian misinformation and dismissed claims that Ukraine had instigated the war. The European Union also condemned the situation, stating that no discussions about Ukraine's future should take place without Ukraine's participation. However, these protests appeared meaningless as the US and Russia seemed to have reached a common understanding. Previous US-Ukraine negotiations had already hinted at the shifting dynamics. Leaked documents reported by The Telegraph revealed that Washington had proposed an agreement resembling a corporate takeover rather than a peace settlement. The draft outlined a joint investment fund where the US would control 50% of Ukraine's mineral resources, oil, gas, ports and infrastructure, lasting until the US recovered at least $500 billion, far exceeding the $15 billion in aid provided to Ukraine since 2022. Furthermore, the agreement would be governed under New York state law rather than Ukrainian jurisdiction, effectively stripping Ukraine of its sovereign rights in the matter. Ukraine's rejection of this exploitative deal was believed to be one of the reasons Trump did his stance, favouring Russia and pushing for a peace agreement that could severely disadvantage Ukraine. Trump's approach to Ukraine mirrors his stance on Gaza, prioritising economic benefits over humanitarian or security concerns. He openly framed discussions around Ukraine's future in terms of financial opportunities, including control over $500 billion in natural resources and lucrative real estate. This shift highlights how, for the US, the war is no longer about justice, but about economic transactions. As the conflict continues, the true scale of casualties remains difficult to determine. Reports suggest that around 330,000 people from both sides have died since the war began, based on over 140,000 documented incidents as of early February 2025. Ukrainian sources claim their military has lost 45,000 soldiers, with 380,000 wounded and tens of thousands missing in action. Meanwhile, Russia has not disclosed its official death toll. A joint investigation by BBC Russia and Mediazona has identified the names of at least 90,000 Russian soldiers killed, but Ukraine estimates Russian losses to be as high as 854,000. 3 years of devastation have left both countries yearning for an end to the war. However, any potential resolution is unlikely to satisfy all parties, especially with the United States treating the situation as a business deal. As of now, no final decision has been publicly announced regarding Ukraine's fate. However, Donald Trump's special envoy, Sitkov, has stated that the US is close to reaching a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. If this deal follows its expected trajectory, one outcome seems almost certain: Ukraine will not join NATO, and its borders will not return to their pre-2014 status. Additionally, the negotiations will reportedly use the Istanbul framework, referring to peace talks held in March 2022 between Russia and Ukraine in Turkey. While those earlier discussions resulted in Russia agreeing to scale back its military operations, Ukraine had proposed adopting a neutral status with international security guarantees. However, no final agreement was ever reached, and the war continued. Now, with Trump as a major player in the negotiations, the dynamics of the talks could change significantly, most likely in a way that benefits Russia rather than Ukraine.